Everything's going just fine. It's great. Welcome back to Veteran Revivals. The day has finally come. I'm Art, your veteran idiot, and this is our big block 460 for Private Pile, our 85 Bronco. 86? 85. 85 Bronco. And we originally picked up this engine with the transmission and transfer case for a really good price, and you know, things with a really good price tend to have some issues. That is new to me. So pulled it apart and found out that a ring land had broke, and it was dragging rings, broken rings across the cylinders and pretty screwed up. So we're back here in the clean room. Definitely not the dirty room. To put this engine together, just got it back from the machine shop. They bored it 40 over to get it cleaned out. So they honed it, we got the piston set on the rods, everything's good to go. We're ready to put this bad dog together. If you hear humming in the background, it's a Harbor Freight generator that I had to completely disassemble and put back together because I let it set too long and everything gelled up. So it's out there running our heater, trying to get it warm in here. I've also got a patio heater behind you there that is cranking. It was 39 degrees in here, so trying to get the heat up in here, get it a little bit warmer. I can't imagine it's good to put an engine together in the cold. I'm sure the tolerances are gonna be way off from when it's at a normal state. I could be wrong. Y'all are the engine builders. I'm not. I know how to put Legos together, and that's what we go with. So I know the basic ins and outs and everything else like that. So I got all the parts here. Went with Steel Power on most of our bearings and rings and the pistons. I liked their products in the Mustang, so I think we're good with that. I got our Terminator X sitting over there ready to go. New timing chain and gears, a new harmonic balancer. The gaskets kit, I picked up an IAC from a Fiesta. We're gonna throw that in rather than the pulse width modulated IAC that's in its standard, and we had so much issues with it in the Fox body. So I've got one back there just in case this stepper style doesn't work. Hopefully we don't have to use it. I've got the TFI stuff that we need to hook up to this TFI distributor that comes on this engine itself. So we're about ready. Got everything we need. The L&L headers showed up finally, along with the accessory drives and brackets. That's a win. So it's been about 3 months in the making. Finally got it. They had to make these pistons. They didn't have 40 over pistons at 4-inch. I thought 4-inch was pretty common piston, but we're ready. We're good to go. I've already shoelaced the journal on the cranks. So now we just gotta put it all together. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go through and I want to take this WD-40 and I'm going to spray out all the journals and the galleys just to make sure, and then we'll put the plugs back in and start laying some bearings. Relatively straightforward. You just hit everywhere there's oil passages and just clean it out. We'll also spray this on the cylinders and wipe down the cylinders so they're all good to go. Most of these oil galleys go down into the cam bearing areas, which is going to be the next thing we're going to do is the cam bearings while this is all apart. It's only got 2 oil passages that drop back to the pan that I could see. Maybe 460 guys know better. They're back towards the back of the engine, all the way in the back, and I assume that has something to do with the 3 degree plane that these things prefer to be on. But anywho, let's go ahead and spray this stuff out. Get the floor nice and dirty. That's why we bought Dry Sweep. All right, everything looks pretty good. I think we're good to go. All of our oil passages will hit the lifter galleys as well. All right, cam bearings, along with some other stuff. We'll wipe this down real quick and then we'll throw in the cam bearings. We're not going with any fancy cam in this guy, so it's just getting the factory cam thrown back in here. And yes, I know they're a little bit retarded, but you can't say that anymore these days. You understand? It's not right. Anywho, so we got the cam, factory cam, we're gonna throw back in. If we throw any bigger of a cam, I'm afraid we're gonna start snapping axles and everything else. It's got a Dana 44 on the front and an 8.8 in the rear. The C6 will have no problem with any of that, but you know, everything else between there starts to scream and break off, and then the factory worn hubs. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. Probably will anyways, but it's not gonna need a thumper, giant, huge duration and lift cam. It's gonna be plenty stout in its current form. All these bearings are the exact same size. We're just gonna start from the back and then just pound them in. I've already lubed it up with some WD-40, and these will just, but you start in the back. That way you can use your tool to press them in as you go, and you don't have to take it apart, put it together, take it apart, put it together. You can just slide it down through, pound in one, back it out, put in the next, pound it in, back it out as you go all the way to the end. So we'll start back there. Just like, we'll slide her through, slide our bearing on. You wanna make sure these holes line up, tighten it up so the bearing doesn't slip, and then you can feel the holes are straight up. So long as you get it lined up, and then you just give it a little tip tap, tappity tap, taparoo, right on in there. And you can pull it out, make sure you're good to go. You can do that by sticking a pick up in there, ensuring your hole is lined up in there. Careful not to scratch the bearing. It drops right in. So we're good to go on that one. Free and clear. So on the very front one, it's got two holes. It's got the in, and then it's got an out here that oils the thrust, sorry. So you gotta make sure that those two are lined up. There's a hole here and a hole here. Make sure that the race isn't turned the opposite direction. That would be a bad day. So these two holes need to line up here. And this one's a little tricky because you gotta kind of stabilize and pound it in yourself. Now that that's done, we gotta double check to make sure both of these holes are patent. That one's good to go, and that one is good to go. That's it. Cam bearings are done. Not that scary, right? Yeah, you can screw this up really easily. Nothing says that this won't fail, but I'm pretty confident it won't. 60% of the time it works every time. Yeet! Now the cam can go in, but I want to wipe this stuff out first. And then we'll slap on the old. Sweet. Now we're all polished up. We're gonna goop a ton of assembly lube on here and sling her in there. And then as it's passing through each bearing, I will put more on. We'll just slather as we go. Then we'll goop down on the lobes and all that other business. Well, what do we got going on here? Why doesn't it want to pass? Interesting. I don't understand. But I'm not gonna go give it the whole He-Man to get it through there. Well. And we're back. It has been a day. I was fighting that camshaft. Come to find out, the cam bearings were wrong in the sense that they were different sizes all the way down. They were like 5,000ths off in certain places, and it wouldn't fit the camshaft down there. And all the journals on this camshaft are the exact same size, so it should have just boop, 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 all the way through and been fine. Some camshafts have a smaller butt at the back of the engine, so it's a smaller one back there, but this one is exactly the same, all the journals, but all the bearings were different sizes. So we got a new set of bearings coming from the Amazon. They should be here later this afternoon, but we're just going to go ahead and we're going to continue with the rotating assembly. We're going to use our plastic gauge, get everything set up, make sure that all these bearings are good to go, and that way when we get the camshaft back in, we'll just unbolt it, take the crankshaft out, set it down, bang in all the bearings and all that stuff, and then put it back together. I don't want to wait anymore. I got to get this thing back together. I've already made a huge mess, and there's so much more to do, so we got to keep moving forward. That's what we're going to do right now. Bearings, plastic gauge, crunch, measure, take apart, put back together, good to go. So one of the most important things with putting this all back together is you got to make sure there is nothing underneath these bearings. No dust, no oil, nothing. It has to be completely dry, completely clean, nothing in here. It'll really screw up your tolerances and it'll be a bad day. You put oil underneath these, put them down, it is going to take up enough space to where it will actually make your tolerances too tight. And you'll be fighting that one, trying to figure out why it's too tight, or you'll put it together and it'll seize immediately. There are upper and lowers. Make sure you're putting the uppers facing the top of the engine. They have oil galleys, and you want to make sure that those oil passages are open and usable. I'm sure it is better to use a lint-free paper towel, but I don't have any here, so that's not going to happen. All right, now that that's all set, let's drop this crankshaft in here. I'd like to put some WD-40, just a slight film, maybe just a little bit of assembly lube on the journals and get it set to where it's not going to spin, and then we'll put the plastic gauge on it just so there's some form of slide on here. Come on, big fella. There we go. There she goes. You are seeing just the slightest amount of pitting on here. You actually can't even feel it with your finger at all. And I've gone through and polished all of it and everything else, so should be good to go. So get the plastic gauge, we'll put it down, we'll torque all these to spec, take them back off and see what our tolerance is. Torque that is, Sheila.
Okay. Go.
Specs on this are a 95 to 105 foot-pounds. So we're going to go right down the middle at 100 foot-pounds. Also, don't forget to put oil on the threads to help with lessen the resistance, get you accurate torque specs. Ugh. It's hard with a bad shoulder, friends. Especially when stuff keeps moving that's not supposed to be moving. Scary, whatever that was. There we go. Let's pull all these bad boys back off. Check our plastic gauge. Yep. Oh. Okay, so what we're looking here is we're looking to get between 8 thousandths and 28 thousandths. Should get us in that ballpark. It'll tell us 10 thousandths, 15 thousandths, 20 thousandths, 30 thousandths. So we'll just kind of eyeball between all of that business. So you can see the squish here. Might be hard to tell on the camera, but we'll go ahead and measure it. It looks pretty loose. So anything greater than 30 thousandths and we should have this thing checked out. So we are right at the upper limits. It looks like maybe 25 thousandths if I had to guess. But anywho, we're not less than 30 thousandths. We're going to go ahead and run that one. Let's check the next one. And that one, we're going to be right at 20 thousandths. So that one's good. Well, the other one's good too. It's just a little loose, but not too loose. That one is right at 20 thousandths. 20 thou. This one is right about 28 thou. So it is right at the upper limit, but that's okay. It's an old, loose engine. It's going to be just fine. We're not spending 75,000 RPM. I think it'll be perfect. Again, I'm not an engine builder. I'm sure some of you will have some other suggestions on this, but for me, I feel comfortable with this. And because I have so much experience doing this, my comfort is right.
That's not comforting at all.
Cool. Now that that's done, we can clean off this plastic gauge. Professional engine builders would probably go down and do it in several places on the journal, make sure they're good and it's not egg-shaped, so on and so forth. But I think we're good just based on... That's a lot of work. So we're going to get a film of oil on here, put the caps back on, and then we'll start pushing some pistons down through, get all that stuff set up in place, and get the rings gapped. They should be good to go wherever they went. They're not over here. I got to go find the rings. But anywho, they're Molly rings. they should be good on the gap, considering we're 40 thou over and exactly 40 thou, and we're honed to these pistons. It should be good. So let's clean this up, put those caps back on, throw some oil on all this stuff, put those caps back on, so when we turn it over, it's not going to start gouging the bearings. Oh, wouldn't you know it? Cam bearings showed up, so I'm going to knock these in real quick. These all came out to within a thousandths of each other, so this better work. That's all I'm saying. Not thoroughly impressed with Clevitt, or however want to say it. Molly's usually good, but Clevite, I don't know how you pronounce it. Anywho, there were some burrs in here that I cleaned out with the pick, and the edges are really, really rough, and seems like there's a lot of material on the outside, so not thoroughly impressed. Let's pound them in. Let's clean them up, see if we can't get that camshaft in there freely. Not a chance. Yeah, it's not happening. I don't think the camshaft is warped or bent or anything. I'm not sure exactly, aside from the different tolerances, what exactly was going on at that time. I'll try and slide her in now with the new stuff. In you go, little fella. Oh. Oh. I don't rightly understand. Exact same thing. Exactly. Well, sorry I cut away from you, but I had to swear at this thing a little bit. I had to fight it. So the second cam bearing under the second main cap, second bearing in, is tighter than the rest of them. So I don't know if that was the actual block itself that was tighter, but I ended up cleaning it out, putting the bearing back in, and the cam slid right in. So I think we're good now. We can go ahead and throw the crank in and then start doing the pistons and all that other stuff. It has been quite the day, 2 days. Quite the 2 days. Let's put this thing in here. I need to find the rear main seal and throw that on as well. Let's get the crank set up here first. Yeah. Let's see if I can find that rear main real quick and we'll toss that in. I like that they folded a lot of these in here. That's nice. There she is. Two-pieced.
Great. Great, 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 great.
But we'll slap a little ERT in there. That'll do us. The intake manifold gaskets are wild. Rubber. Lots of rubber. Interesting. Look through this later. Ow.
It's a rat!
Now I am gonna just slap a teensy weensy little speck of RTV on each side over here. I don't want a whole lot going under the main cap and pushing it out, but I just want some right on the ends where these two meet. Just something to adhere those two together. And I want to drop that bolt, you know, right down in there. Now that we got that cam finally squared away, actually make some progress on this thing. In 2 days of seemingly no progress at all. It's defeating. Once I get the pistons on and the caps on for that and it's torqued and we know that we're good to go with that, I will go ahead and put the pump and the pan on, fill it up. I know that the front cover still has to go on, stuff like that, but I want to fill it up and I'm going to run the pump shaft with a drill and push oil into all these spaces and build up oil pressure and push it out and ensure that everything is nice and coated with a good break-in oil before I do any rotation for setting the rockers and stuff like that. That's the way I want to do it. Maybe we'll put on the timing chain and gear. Mazel, right? Mazel. Yeah, okay. Let's do that. Okay. Maybe we won't get this off. All right. Okay. If you were wondering, yes, your hands get annihilated doing this. Cut up on everything. All right, went with the Edelbrock Performalink timing chain. It's one of the cheapest ones there. If you have a preference, throw it down in the comments. Maybe in the next engine build, we'll use that one. Okie dokie. Let's put the dots in the places where the dots go. Where's the dowel? No dowel for the camshaft. No idea where it is. Don't know why it didn't come with a new one. That sucks. A lot. A lot. Sucks a whole bunch, not a little bit. A lot. A whole bunch. Whole bunch of a lot. Sucks. I'll be back. So, gave up on looking for the dowel. I'll order one up. Why is it fighting me so much? Does it fight you guys this much when you're building an engine? This is ridiculous, to be quite frank. But let's throw some pistons in here, because what else are we gonna do? So, let's gap some rings. Great, did I lose the rings too? All right, some Molly rings. These are 40 over. I think what we did on the Mustang, 28 thou, I think. Because we didn't know for sure if we were going to put booster, spray it and stuff like that. So we wanted them gapped a little bit. It doesn't even smoke at that. So these rings should be pretty good. Out of the box, we shouldn't have to mess with any of them. In fact, they say to, from what I've read in some cases, not to grind these Molly rings. But hey, if they're too tight, they got to get wider. Let's give it a go. Okay. Okay. Looks pretty tight. 16, say 16 is probably what we're looking at here. I think we'll be all right though. At 16, factory is 10 to 20, so 16 is right in there. Like it to be a little bit bigger. Honestly, I don't think this thing will ever see any type of boost or spray. So 16 it is. Let's roll with it. Tied at 20, so it's 20. It's within spec. So we'll call that one good too for our second. Okay. All right. Let's toss them on. That's nice. All right, so that one's put together. Now we're just gonna go down the line. I'm gonna do all of these, slap them on the pistons, and then we'll put the pistons in. Make sure you're always going with the dot or the bevel to the top of the piston. This does not have a bevel, but it does have a dot. So we're going with that to the top side. The top ring on this does not have a bevel or a dot, so it's gonna go either direction. Cool, now that there's rings on all these guys, let's go ahead and start tossing them in there. And we'll go with putting the bearings on as well. We gotta clean all that off and then drop it down the tube. Went with Seal Power on these bearings as well. They seem to be way better than Clevite, or Cleavit, or Clevit, however it's pronounced. Drop those little fellers in there. Now these pistons, not only are they numbered, but they also have an F for front, and then that's the direction it's gonna face. And this one is number 4, so it's gonna go down here and face forward. Get it? Rotate this crank out of the way. They have better ones than this. They have just sleeves that go down and around. This is what I have access to, because I don't want to spend what the other ones cost. Does that make sense? All right, we'll crank that down, give it a little beep boop down through the hole. Watch our journals. Just like that. Then we're going to want to slide it down, put it on the journal, because if we rotate it, we don't want it to come up and, you know, guide her on down. Making sure not to hit anything on the way down. Bam. And a bearing in the bottom. Ford numbers theirs, so you get the cap facing the right direction. Never built a GM, so I don't know if they do that as well. I would presume, you know. Next one up Number 8. Bam. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and knock the rest of these in. Go ahead, roll that time lapse, Sheila. Well, that's gonna do it for tonight. I didn't even realize it's dark outside. Need to go inside, eat some food, watch the Suns game. All the pistons are in. I have not plastic gauged the rods yet. I just put the caps on so I could rotate it around. And that's gonna be it for tonight. I'm gonna go inside and put bandages on my hands. Good morning. We're back. I think I got some egg in my beard. We're back, ready to start on this thing. I was laying in bed last night and a bunch of things dawned on me. One, I have a dowel in the cam for that 302 over there. Two, I didn't clock the rings on these pistons before I dropped them in.
Idiot!
I know. Good thing we're pulling the caps off to do plastic gauge and stuff like that. So I'll just push the piston up, clock the rings, push it back down. I know. One step forward and 2 steps back. It's like the 2-step of engine building. But anywho, we need to get this dowel out of this thing. And it looks like it's going to be an issue because it is caked in there. And this engine has been really hot at one point. There she is. We need to get that sucker out of there. And it may require some heat. But there it is. We don't have to order another one. I couldn't honestly tell you what happened to the one that was in the cam because I can't imagine that it worked very well without it. So we'll probably find it when we're done with all this crap. I just don't know where it is right now. So I'm going to go ahead and get that thing out of there and then we'll start pulling pistons again and doing all of that. Come on. Why? Why don't you want to come out? There she goes. There she goes. There we are. Yeah, sure is purty. In you go, little fella. Come on now. Don't give me no trouble. Why is everything on this engine difficult? All right, let's see if this cam gear will slide on there or if we got to do some more shaving. Looks like we might be all right. Alrighty then. Yeah. So one thing that's cool about this Edelbrock timing chain and gears that we got is that it allows you to advance or retard the timing on your factory camshaft. It's about moving the torque, supposedly. If you advance the camshaft, it moves the torque to a lower end. If you retard the camshaft, it moves the torque to a higher end. We're not really going to mess with any of that stuff. It's going to have plenty of torque as it is. So we're going to go and put this on the standard dot, send it home. If we were getting crazy and stuff like that, it's not too much trouble to take the timing cover off and advance or retard this, but we're just going to go with the normal or straight up position on this for this camshaft. I know factory ones are retarded from the factory and advancing and probably put it straight up, but I don't want to mess with any of that stuff. Like I said, we're just going to let it be. It's going to have plenty of power, plenty of torque that we need in that Bronco out of this thing. Please come home. Got beans and bologna. Yeah. Easy. All right, let's get this chain right here. On up, on here. We got to turn this to match it, so. It looks like it's probably right on the money. All right, just like that, she is on. Sweet. Good golly, Miss Molly, why is everything on here so sharp? All right, so we're going with the old 10, 2, 4, 8, and 6. So 10 o'clock position for the top, 2 o'clock for the second ring. The oil, we're gonna go with 8 and 4 covered, overlapping, none of it's over the wrist pins. Then we'll shove it all back in here. Torque these bad girls down, get us a reading. All right, so we're gonna go to 45 foot-pounds with these guys. For this fella, we are about 28, so we're right at the end of that one as well. Still good. It'll ride. All right, so I'm gonna clean this off. I'm gonna do that to the other 7 cylinders, and then we'll get back on track with actually assembling this thing. So I skipped ahead a little bit. Threw in the fuse plugs, cleaned out the pump, put the pump on, resealed it. Went to put on the timing cover. It broke in 2 pieces, trying to take the seal out. So I went and bought a new timing cover and water pump. So the water pump's all rusty. So we'll put that on. Clean up the oil pan.
That's really gross.
Ooh, child. Everything better be in this box. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. 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 Slap this guy on here. And I already cut myself. 10 seconds in. So, we'll pound in this seal and the old copper gasket because leaks suck. And then we will pop it in there after I drop that on the floor. And we won't tighten this down until we have the little weight here. It's kind of like the balance between the harmonic balancer, because we want it to be centered on that. We don't want to blow out that seal, so we will put it on centered on that. So just touching, as they say. The water pump bolts will go through all these top ones. So we're just getting the bottom ones lined up. And then, come on. Okay, that looks pretty, right? Yeah, yes. I'm missing one here, a little short one. We'll figure that out, don't worry. Now the water pump, so we can put the rest of these bolts in. There will be a little tiny hose that'll go between the manifold and here. How to install your new water pump. Throwaway instructions. Cool, easy enough. Throw some thread sealant on these bad dogs, because you never know where they go. Might go right into Davy Jones's locker. Water passage. Wow. Okay. Okay, all right. You don't say. Well, no. Oh my goodness. Gotta save the backing plate from the other one. I'm gonna clean that off. I'll be back. So, update. None of these little guys fit. They're all too short for this water pump. This is a more heavy duty water pump apparently, and it is deeper. So I gotta get all those bolts replaced, and that's neat, right? And then we'll be good to go. That's not gonna happen today, because I've got family coming over for din-din. And so I'm just gonna put in this provision, and I'm going to put on the fuel pump block off plate, and I'm going to let this sit, come at it again tomorrow. Man, I don't know why. This should be just a straightforward put back together, but apparently Ford. So we'll get to it though. See you in the morning again. Welcome back to Why Is This My Life Now? where we've been struggling with this 460 for the last 3 or 4 days. Went and got the bolts this morning. Water pump, timing cover is bolted on, and he slid this little weight in here to line it up. Put this in first, that way we could line up the gasket, and so we're not rubbing one side or the other, and then tightened everything down. That should be good to go. And then we'll get this little piece of hose when we go to put on the intake manifold. But right now, I think we're good to start putting the heads on. And actually, I'll probably do the oil pan first. That way we can pump some oil through and see how everything looks prior to putting the heads on. I guess it doesn't really make sense, but I'm gonna do one of those two things right now, after I get a Red Bull. Oh, copper stuff. I love you. Head gaskets look pretty good. There's some corners that are beat up, but they actually don't touch anything in here, so they're inconsequential, as one would say. So we're gonna drop these on. I already cleaned up the head surface. Oh, these suckers are, one would say, heavy. Come on now. Drop on your little home. There you go. There you go. It's no wonder these things were like 1,000 pounds. There is so much cast iron on here. It's ridiculous. Maybe one day I'll get aluminum heads. Probably not. Okay. Oh, good. I got some snapped off manifold bolts. Good. All right. We'll tackle that. Never. Why you keep fighting me, guy? Just go with it. I'm bringing you back to life. Oh, we did not go with head studs on this. I don't think it's necessary. This is kind of like even though it's bored over and it's got some good parts in it, it's kind of a basic build, so we'll leave her alone. But do have the head bolts. Sweet Caroline 000. So we're gonna go 50 pounds, 85 pounds, 100 pounds. We'll get her in there. That's not good for it. All right, 85. 100. This is where it gets scary. Same thing to the other side. Oh. Whoop. She's heavy on one side now. Real heavy. That's nice. Be right back with you after this side. All right, there's the last piece de la resistance before we can paint it. Oh wait, no. I've got like 5 studs to drill out in the heads because they broke off. Sweet. So, there's that. We're almost there. Yeah, it's looking big. All right, now we get to see if we can get these bad dogs out. 1, 2 on this side, 3 on the other side. This gonna be interesting. See if any of these drill bits are sharp. Okie dokie, in we go. Okay, needs a dimple. It's going down. Getting busy. Where's my WD-40? We run the sucker through the sharpener. See what we get. Back at it. Now it's not cutting at all. What is going on here? Welcome back again. I spent hours upon hours upon hours trying to drill out those broken bolts in that head. Wasn't happening. It was not happening. Ended up starting to wander off into the casting. I went through like 5 drill bits. I sharpened like 20 of them trying to get pilot holes. I was breaking drill bits. It just was not happening. So I finally caved and I went and looked for some new heads. Looked for some new E7 heads. I found some at a shop that is closing down and they're getting rid of everything at a great price, except for it had broken bolts in the manifolds, or the heads where the manifolds go. I wasn't about to start that journey all over again, so I kept looking through there, and I was looking for some Dove C heads for Earl, actually, while I was in there, because I only found the one set of E7 heads, and I couldn't find anything, so I left. And the guy called me as I was heading out the door and said that he found some more heads and asked if I wanted to check those out. And I asked him, I was like, sure, what's the cast number on it real quick? And he said E3TE. And I was like, oh, I'm not familiar with an E3. There's an F3, which in my mind I was like, oh, this is good. These are the better heads. And he's like, oh, yeah, F3TE. I was like, I'll be right there. Turned around, went back, and got the heads. And they are in perfect condition. They've been Magnaflux checked and resurfaced and everything else, and they are perfect. Not a single broken bolt in the entire thing. Amazing, just amazing find. $150 for both of them. That's a going out of business deal right there. It came disassembled, so I had to put it all together. Well, I put one of them together. So the biggest difference between the E7 and this new F3TE, or F3 head, E7TE, F3TE, is this was more of like an EGR emissions head. And this is after they figured out we don't need EGR crap. We'll put catalytic converters on it and that'll be good enough. Don't look at my mess over there. Remember, also, but we're still good because of that. Anywho, the valves, let me grab one for you here. I already cleaned all these off. The valves, the exhaust valves, are the exact same size. This is an E7 head. These are F3TE valves. The valves, the exhaust side, exactly the same. However, the exhaust port, or where the manifold goes, is slightly smaller, and it is ever so slightly larger on the F3TE. That's bonus number 1. Now, over here with the intake valve is much larger. That's a win. Much larger intake valve, much larger intake runner. The intake holes on for the intake manifold appear to be the exact same size. However, I've been told that these F3 heads flow, not these ones, these ones flow a lot better, and they're just all around generally better heads. And so that was a win. We got some bigger intake valves, bigger exhaust ports, and better flowing heads without all the business of those old E7 heads. So that was an awesome find. The intake plenum will bolt right up to it. The only thing that does not bolt to these are the carbureted intakes. Well, they do bolt, the holes are the same. However, the intake ports don't exactly line up, whether they're different size or something like that. Somebody down in the comments will probably let us know what the difference is on that end. But I was excited to find these F3 heads, and so we're putting them on. I have already gone through and lapped all these valves, put the seals on, and assembled these heads, this head. So this one's good. Now we just need to do this one, and I'll walk you through that one. Let's go ahead and get this garbage out of the way. Keep those for never. So, the surface is nice here. It's got just ever so slight amount of surface rust from sitting in a Connex, but it is not pitting. So I'm just gonna quick go over it with this 400 and then the 2000 just to get this little surface crap off. If I had a bead blaster, I'd go ahead and bead this and they would be absolutely perfect. But I don't, so I got what I got. All right, so we're gonna go through, make sure everything's free in the guides. We don't want to spin any grooves into the stem, but get this little valve grinding compound. I'm sure there are a whole bunch of Miracle grinding compounds you can use, but this is the one I used and it worked perfectly. You're just gonna get a little tiny dab on like 3 spots or 4 spots on the valve. Not a whole bunch, because what we're looking for is we're looking for a change in sound. And if you got a bunch on there, you're not gonna be able to tell, it'll just keep going. So just a little dab. By all means, I am not an expert with all of this. I have done this a couple times, mostly for dirt bikes, motorcycles. Put your little suction cup on there, then you're gonna dab it around so it gets all over the entire seat. And then you're just gonna spin it in and listen for a sound change. When you hear the sound change, pick it up, drop it down. Just start your little fire. Listen for sound change, pick it up, drop it down, pick it up, drop it down a couple times until you're confident that you're ground all the way around and have a good seat. Sometimes grease or WD-40 helps us suction on here. When you don't hear the grinding anymore, and pull it up, you wipe it off and take a look at your seat. And what you're looking for is that it is going to show some dark areas where it is not seating, whether it's pitted or there's some concave or convex to it. And then you are just going to grind it till you get to get that convex, concave out, or those little pitting spots. The wider that your gray band is, you could be out of specs, so make sure you mic that. But these look pretty good. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next, do the rest of them. One thing I should point out is that you don't wanna use a drill on here. I know, well, you have to be really careful using a drill to spin the valve on there. A lot of times it just ends up spinning in the same spot and you get the same piece of grit or metal, the grind material, stuck in one spot. And it creates grooves in there, and you don't want the grooves. The grooves are what you're trying to get rid of. So just keep that in mind if you're going to do it real quick with a drill. You can really screw it up real fast, and then you have to get it resurfaced or reground. Let's go ahead and put the seals on this thing. I use a little socket to push it on there. Everybody else has got their own techniques, but I just get the butt end of the socket with the same size diameter and just cram it on there. There we go. Springs and retainers. Looks real nice. I don't have a fancy spring compressor. I just have a bar with a hole in it, and it seems to do the job. So all you fancy people with your pneumatic clamp, and you know what to do. So this is my fancy spring compressor. Simple leverage. That's all it is. Makes it kind of hard to hold the head and pick up on this, but you know, it happens. And it happens to work, and it was like 10 bucks. So how about now? Stay in there, valve. Oh, you want to just get in there. Too good for your home? Oh my, dropping all of them. Shouldn't have put all these in my hand. What was I thinking? Jeez. One down here, one down there, one over here, one over there. All right, I'm just gonna go down the line. Wow, okay, all right. Okie dokie. Two can play that game. This one was still good. I was able to get this one tapped out. However, it's just not a good head. I'm gonna do this all over again. I'm gonna go and find some F3 heads. But anywho, wasted head gasket, yay. Yeah. there it is. All right, now is the perfect time to take this thing outside, hose it down with some brake clean, wipe it down, and spray paint it. Because I want to spray paint it this way. I'm not spraying inside the valves and everything else like that. We'll let it dry just a little bit, and then we'll come back in, spin it over, fill it up with oil, and start working on the valve train. I want to be able to prime the pump before spinning the valve train for obvious reasons. I want the bearings to have lubricity, you know, so they don't scratchicity.
Cringe.
Whatever, I'm gonna roll this thing outside and spray it off.
It's too streaky. Where?
Oh yeah, that's nice. Gonna get a razor blade, clean off the surfaces on here. And then we'll clean up the intake manifold and throw it on after we get the rest of the rotating assembly in here. Make sure that we're good and lubed before we start spinning this thing around to set our lash and so on and so forth. Now with the hydraulic lifters, we are going to seat so there's no movement in the push rod, and then we'll go a 3/4 turn to a stop. And if it doesn't come to a stop within the 3/4 turn, then there's a chance that maybe it needs shorter push rods, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I don't think that's going to be an issue. Let's throw in some lifters. These things have been sitting in here for a week now since I started messing with this thing. So they should be nice and pumped up-ish. They're soaked. They've been in soaking for a week. That's all I can say. Oh yeah. I'm using break-in oil. I use Lucas break-in oil for those who are asking. It's just my preference. Everybody's got their own, just as long as it's got a ton of zinc. We have a factory already broken in camshaft, and all of these lifters have all been broken in as well. So there should be zero need to run this thing at like 2,500, $3,000 for 20 minutes or whatever it is to break in a camshaft, because this thing should be good to go. Hardened and mated, as one would say. I have these stacked in here in the order that they came out. Probably doesn't make a difference, but in my mind it does, so that's what I did. I'm gonna pour the rest of this down on the cam, and we'll throw the oil filter on, push rods in, and the rest of that break-in oil over there. Start spinning this pump. These push rods are pretty stained, nasty. Is what it is, long as they're patent and straight. Which on rollout, all of these were straight, so we're good in that aspect. Oh, come back. You go there. So I do have roller rocker kits and roller lifters and roller cam for this engine, but it's not going to be used like that, so it's not really anything worth spending the hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get the roller lifters, and then the hundreds of dollars for the roller cam, which then you can break other stuff because this thing has lots of torque when you start adding the cam to it. All right, so I got 5/16 socket down on that drive shaft, and we're just gonna pump it up. Pump it up. It spins counterclockwise, in case you were wondering. Let's go ahead and give her the juice. Once it picks it up, you'll hear it load up. There it goes. We know we got it pumped up. You can get about 20 pounds doing it this way. You got a fast enough and strong enough drill. Let's turn her up to max. This battery is gonna say, heck no. Yep, there it went. Not today. You can see the oil pumping out of the galleys. There we go. Now it's starting to come out over here on that side. Might have to rotate it a little bit to get it to come out all sides. Yep, we're filling all these down here. Let's give her a little rotate so we can start filling this stuff down here. Okay, so I got oil up to this side, some here, and it still needs to come out of this one, but it's up all of these over here. I'm starting to burn up my drill, it's starting to smoke. But I can see it's coming out. We're gonna go ahead and start rolling this through, and get it set up. I'll probably pull that. Yeah, nice. Probably pull this rocker off, double check that the push rod is patent, and then slap it back in there. If I have to guess, it's probably just position where the push rod is. There is oil sitting in the bottom, so it is coming up. I want to make sure it's patent. This break-in oil is super thick too, so there's that aspect of it. It's patent. See right through her. Oil doesn't taste like it's got vitamins. All right, let's go through and take the lash out of all these. Woo! Good one. So this first one, I'm backing them all out and making sure what we got going on here. We'll come back to that one. Give her a quarter rotation. Go back through. Another quarter turn, and just keep on rocking it. You're probably wondering why yet another day has passed. I've got bags under my eyes, and there's a dial indicator in the valley. Well, I mean, things went wrong. So I went to go do the preload yesterday, right after I cut off the video, and everything is good. 99% of the push rods and lifters were good. It was between a quarter and a half turn preload before the seat sat down and tight. That's good. Quarter to 3/4, I think, is the general rule, except for a couple of them. This being one of them. The number 3 intake, rattling around, push rod up and down with the rocker seated down. No bueno. And the number 7 intake, push rod, rattling around with the rocker seated all the way down. So I pulled out the push rod, put the dial indicator on. It's 170 thou lift on this one because I thought maybe the lobe had flattened out. Who knows? And then I went over to one that I knew had a good preload, and it had 170 thou lift, so that lobe was good. I was happy with the cam. Cam is good. Well, as good as it can be for what I have. So my next one was to measure the push rods, make sure I had the right push rods, and I do. They're 8.55, which is what is needed for the F3 head. Then I rolled them out again just to make sure there was no bends, and they roll perfectly. And then noticed there was no rebound in the lifter. So it's probably going to be pretty hard to tell in here. You can see there's a gap between the retainer and the plunger on the lifter. So, lifter is stuck down. I took out the number 3 on this side, took it apart, cycled it, cleaned it out, sprayed it with some brake clean, sprayed it with some WD-40, filled it with oil again, and now it is bouncy. The ball is moving around in the bottom, and it is bouncy and good to go. Put it back in. Got a little over a quarter preload. It worked. So now I'm going to take this one apart because this is the other one that was dead or down, and we're going to clean it up and make sure that the ball in the bottom is free and there's nothing blocking the holes, and get it back up. Because right now it doesn't want to move at all. I'm going to go take that apart and we'll see you in a minute. All right, just like that. Springy. Just take it out, cycle it a bunch, WD-40, get it cleaned up. All right, I'm gonna put this retainer back in, pop it in, finish the preload, valve train will be done. And we get 3/4, but it's not pumped up either like the other one. So we're good to go. I'm gonna go back through and make sure everything is good, and then we will start doing valve covers and intake manifold. Real bonehead move right here. Put the intake manifold on without this piece. Might be able to get it in there. Might. Slim chance. There's a might in there. Well, there it is. Our 468. Our 460 bored 40 over, 468 cubic inches, thereabouts. So that's what we're calling it now, 468. I need to get some bolts for the headers, maybe do some studs, but get some bolts for the headers, finish off the bolts for the intake manifold, and then we got to throw in the distributor and put the wires on and the rest of the ports and plugs and everything else, get rid of all these vacuum lines and start getting ready for the Terminator X and such. But we're not going to do that on this episode. It has been a long, long journey. Still a clean room, by the way, even. Anywho, it's been a long journey, about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks of fighting everything with this. It seemed like I would get one little task and then I would have to stop for the day, come back the next day when parts came in, get one little task, stop for the day. I think we went on forever. So the video might be a little bit choppy. I'm gonna try and stream it together the best I can, but there it is, looking great. Also got a remote oil filter we're gonna toss on. I tossed the oil filter on so we could prime the lifters and everything. I'm glad everything worked out. I'm glad we finally got it finished. I know we're gonna hit all kinds of roadblocks throwing this in the Bronco, but at least this part is done and I don't have to deal with it anymore. Oh my gosh, this was ridiculous. Biggest pain you've ever seen. Anyways, thanks for watching. Check out the merchandise. And as always, have fun. Don't do this unless you've got all the parts and you know what you're doing. Anywho,